Okay guys, welcome back. What I want to talk about in this video is the post-show period, or post-show rebound, as some people will call it. Now, this is a period of time that immediately follows your last show or your competitive season. So now your competitive season has come to a close, your last show is done, it's time to switch gears and focus on other things. So up until now, you've been pushing to get lean and bring an amazing package to stage. Now you've had your days, you've had your proud moments. We need to regain normal life. And you're coming from a place in which you're really, really lean to the point it's really unhealthy, and we need to get you healthy again, we need to get you recovering, we need to wash off fatigue, and we need to start putting you in a place where hormonally you're going to actually stand a chance of building muscle, but from a calorie standpoint, you're also, stress is starting to come down. There's a lot of things that we need to start to slowly pivot towards a little bit of a healthier, more developmental state to be. So you're coming from that place, we're switching gears, but the problem is throughout prep, you've developed such strong hunger signaling and such a food focus and excitability around food that yes, we want to start to slowly give you a bit more freedom, a bit more flexibility. We want to give you more food. We want to start feeding the body a little bit more, but left to your own devices, you could binge and not stop and gain way too much body fat way too quickly. So those are the challenges. And a lot of people arguably find the post-show period more challenging than prep itself, because on prep itself, yeah, okay, cool, you've got less food coming in, there's more cardio to do, there's more challenges on paper throughout the day, but it's okay because you've got this huge monumental pressure of the show that essentially keeps you from misbehaving. Whereas now we enter the post-show period, that's all been stripped away, but you are still left with the crazy high hunger signaling and this obsessive food focus all the time that can be really, really tough to deal with. Now, I believe there's two main mechanisms responsible for the crazy high hunger signaling that you experience throughout prep and then also in the post-show period. There's obviously an increase in ghrelin. I don't think many people are surprised by that. It's the hunger hormone, makes sense. But then there's also a mechanism in which I look at as a large part for why there is such a brain focus on excitability about food. And you'll find a subsection of the brain called the hypothalamus. There are 11 nuclei. One of these nuclei is called the arcuate nucleus, and it produces a certain type of neuron that essentially promotes excitability around food. And I've personally found this a lot in my post-show periods in which, yes, I know my hunger is high from a stomach standpoint, but I could go on to eat thousands of calories, actually satisfy my stomach hunger, so to speak, and my brain is still obsessively focused on food. There's this crazy excitability around food that I just can't stamp out. Now, this typically does settle for, anywhere between a month or two post-show. It really is person dependent, but just understand that basically post-show, you're always hungry and you could eat thousands of calories and you'll still be hungry. So the likelihood to binge is actually quite high. So going back to what I was saying, we are in this position in which you were super lean or you are super lean. We need to start feeding the body a little bit more. We need to put you in a position where you're going to start growing muscle and entering an off season, but we don't want to get fat too quickly. And this is kind of the highest risk period of time for getting too fat too quickly to happen. Okay, and this is where a lot of people struggle. So there is no right or wrong for everyone. Everyone is very different, and I just wanted to say that. The period of time in which you notice this crazy excitability around food is different in length, person to person. Some people deal with it totally fine. Some people have a nightmare about it. So it really can differ. So in the post-show period, really what we're looking for is to feed the body, start growing, not spill over, not get too fat. And how we do this is by managing, obviously, food, by managing fatigue, by managing cardio, managing general activity through steps and training and a number of other variables. So working hard with your coach and communicating about how you're feeling, opening up when you're struggling, because it's normal to struggle in this period, is so massively important. Really what I do with my clients is I will usually reduce cardio immediately after their shows. I won't eliminate it in most cases, although some I have. I'll just reduce it quite significantly to the point where they're doing quite minimal, but I'll keep it in a little bit because it really promotes, enforcing that discipline in the post-show period. Also, you can circulate water retention a little bit better. It can be quite good for your digestion, and it also just makes them feel good. I will keep their step count in place. So if they finished prep on 12,000 steps a day is their target, I might keep a 10,000 step target, a daily step target in place, just to keep them moving frequently throughout the day, because the main focus for the post-show rebound or the post-show period is going to be food. It's the client's main focus in their mind 24/7 throughout the day, and it's your main focus for manipulating in order to make them feel like they're getting a bit more flexibility back, and also obviously to drive progress as well. So I'll keep steps in place. Cardio will be brought down to a minimal, but just to keep them moving. And then in terms of food, if the client has, say for example, ended prep on 2,500 calories, maybe I think they need 3,500 to start really growing. Metabolically, that person is not going to be in the same place as they were at the start of prep, because they've just gone through a long period of time of basically being underfed. So there will be a downregulation of their metabolism to take into consideration as well. But if they think, or if we think, they need about 3,500 calories, they're on 2,500, it would be stupid to immediately put up to 3,500. Because what if you're wrong, and what if that's way too much, and what if they get fat and you can't pull them down because they're so hungry and so obsessed with food, they just won't listen to the plan if you pull them down. It's really, really turbulent to just make these crazy jumps. So what you want to do is, if you finish on 2,500, maybe add a few hundred calories, 300-400 calories, see what happens to their body weight, see what happens to them visually. Remember, immediately in the post-show period, we are trying to gain a bit of weight, so you can be a little bit more aggressive with food increases than you usually would, but I still wouldn't recommend going crazy. Now, if they're not really gaining body fat at a rate in which you think is appropriate, remember we want to gain a little bit, but just not too much, you can add another few hundred calories a day to their plan. You can add in an off-plan meal here or there. And in fact, on the subject of off plans, that is actually something I usually recommend adding straight into the client's plan immediately after the show. And that's because they've just worked so hard throughout prep that they kind of just deserve a little bit of a break. So I'll keep their baseline calories a little bit more modest, add in a little bit of an off-plan meal, and then I will slowly titrate their calories up from there, while maintaining a decent step count to keep them moving throughout the day, maintaining cardio, again, just to keep them fit, keep them in a good place, keep them feeling good. And usually that trend, you can bring them slowly up to a place where they're well fed, they've got flexibility back, you're feeding into, muscle growth, and they're feeling good, but they're not making too many mistakes. Now, on that note, nobody's perfect. And this is something you want to remember. So when it comes to the post-show period, there will be mistakes. There will be times where you go a little bit over your calories, and you might be tempted to binge, and it is very, very frustrating. But just understand that you're not a terrible person for this. You're not alone. Everybody experiences this. And this is part of bodybuilding. And actually, this is something that you just get better and better at. Every competitive season you do, you will handle the post-show period better and better. But like everything in the game, it's a little bit of a progression. So that's ultimately, or very generally I should say, how things look when I look after a client in the post-show period, what we're trying to achieve, and how long it typically takes to get there. Understand that everybody's very different. The most important thing that you can do as a client or as a coach is just communicate with your client or communicate with your coach, vice versa. Make sure that you're very open and honest about expectations. Make sure you're kind to yourself as well. As I said, nobody has an easy time with this. So you shouldn't treat yourself too harshly, and neither should your coach. Okay, so it is a teamwork thing. It does require a lot of attention to detail. It does require a lot of trial and error and trying different methods and seeing what works. But ultimately, if you communicate well, you work hard, you try your best, you're kind to yourself, and you got the right plan in place, then ultimately it will pass after a month or two. And then hopefully, after the month or two, you haven't gained too much weight, you're feeling good, you've built a bunch of muscle, and you're ready to really get your teeth into a successful off-season. So that is the post-show period. Hopefully that gives you some insight as to what to kind of expect. Obviously, nothing that I say is absolutely true for every individual all of the time. People have different situations. People obviously have wildly different genetics, bodies, recent history in terms of the context of their dieting and their training and everything like that. So we've got to take these things into consideration. But as I said, hopefully this gives you a little bit of insight. If you have any questions, drop them in the group. If you haven't followed the group or you hadn't been added to the group, the WhatsApp group already, go and check out the caption or the introductory bio to the resource hub, and I hope this helps.